my name is Emily, and I'm super excited to be back with you all today. I know I've been gone for a while. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before, but I am a doctoral student. This is my first year in my PhD program, so I've kind of spent the year trying to get adjusted and just, deal with all of the busyness and the new changes and stuff like that. But I am back with you for Pride Month, June 2021, with some more LGBTQIA+ related videos. And hopefully I'll have some more videos for you in the future as well, but I definitely have videos for June coming to you. So hopefully that will be fun and exciting for both of us. I'm really excited to be making content for you again, and hopefully you will enjoy what I've got for you this month, and in the future as well. When I was thinking about what kind of videos I wanted to put out for Pride Month this year, 2021, I thought that it could be helpful to have a video for like do's and don'ts for when someone comes out to you. I know that obviously coming out is very stressful for the person who is actually coming out, but I think it also can be stressful for the person that is sort of learning this information. A lot of people might get really nervous, feel really stressed out. They don't want to say the wrong thing or hurt their loved one or their friend. And so I thought a video like this could be helpful for the person who actually is hearing this new information, so this will sort of give them an idea of how to respond, what to do, what to avoid doing, to take a little bit of pressure off of them. And also it will improve, hopefully, your response so that it will improve the experience of the person who actually is doing the coming out, so that it can be a better experience for everyone. So hopefully this video will be helpful to you. Whether someone has, just come out to you and, you're like, they texted you maybe and you're like, what should I say? Or maybe someone came out to you and you're not sure it went very well, so you're like, what should I have done? Or you think someone might be coming out to you in the future, so you're just watching this for informational purposes. Hopefully this video will be helpful for you. Okay, so let's start with do's and don'ts for when someone comes out to you. I think that when starting this list, we're going to start with the do's. I think that before we sort of get into like what you should do, I want to sort of, get you in the right frame of mind, or sort of help you create like a mindset that might help you when you are, thinking about how to respond and what you should do to best support your friend or loved one. And I think that it's important to remember that coming out is a very a big risk for the person that is doing it, and it's a very, puts them in a very vulnerable position, right? They're sharing a very important piece of themselves with you, a very important piece of their identity, of their self with you. And that's really special, right? They've chosen you to share this really important information with. And it is a big risk for that person because they don't know how you as the listener will respond, right? Are they is it going to change your relationship with them? Are they about to lose a friend? Are they, about to experience some, sort of discrimination? Are they going to lose their job? Kicked out of the house? How is their parents going to be mad? What's going to happen? It's really stressful. It's a big risk for them. And I think that in some ways, we all can relate to this, whether we've had to come out to someone or not, right? Anytime you share a part of your identity with someone, it puts you in a very vulnerable place, right? Think about a time you maybe had to go to a partner or a boss and, tell them that you were upset about something or talk about something that happened, or anytime you had to share with someone a difficult experience you've been through, or talk to them about an important part of your identity or something like that, right? Anytime you've had to share a part of yourself with someone else. And, think about how you felt and how, vulnerable you were and the risk that it is because you don't know what the other person's going to say, and remember that time and think, okay, this is, in some ways kind of similar for my friend, for my loved one that's coming out to me. They're sharing a big piece of themselves with me, so, how would I want someone to respond if that was me, right? Just remember that and sort of get yourself in that mindset, right? Like this is a big deal, and this likely is very hard for your person. And it is a big risk for them. So I think the first thing that you could do, once you kind of get yourself in this mindset, is to acknowledge that. When someone does come out to you, acknowledge that it's a risk for them, and that you really appreciate them sharing this part of themselves with you. You recognize that it was probably really hard and really scary, and you feel really special that they chose you to share this information with, right? Because, you should feel really special. Someone has chosen to share a very personal piece of themselves with you. So just acknowledge that to your friend, to your loved one. They will definitely very much appreciate that, and I think it will really set the tone for the conversation and help your loved one feel more at ease, feel a little bit less nervous, and kind of get you feeling less nervous too. So that everyone, is kind of on the same page, okay, this is, going to be a good conversation. I think that, as we're sort of assessing our mindset and taking the time to, show appreciation to the person that is, sharing themselves with us in this way, I think that we can also sort of assess how we're feeling and how we're reacting. What is our reaction to this person, coming out to us, to them, sharing their sexual orientation, sharing their gender identity? Are we feeling surprised? Are we confused? Are we feeling nervous, excited, judgmental? What's going on? There could be a lot of feelings. You might be really surprised, or maybe you've seen this coming for years and it's not a surprise. Maybe you're really excited for the person. Maybe they are, using an identity or a label that you're not familiar with. So now you're feeling confused and nervous. I don't know what this is. Oh no, what should I do? Step back for a minute and sort of, think about, okay, how am I feeling? What's going on? And I think this is important because having this awareness of how you feel can sort of help you, calm down a little bit, be a little bit more mindful, a little bit more present in the moment. And it also can help you to sort of rein in any judgmental thoughts. It's important to remember that, this person is in front of you sharing a very, important part of themselves, of their identity. And, later you can think about with yourself, with your partner, with your pastor, whatever, you can think about, how this relates to your values and religious beliefs and how it affects you. But for now, remember that someone is in front of you sharing a really important part of themselves. And, just kind of be with that person. Put your judgmental thoughts on hold for later when you're alone. The person in front of you, they don't need to hear them. They don't need, whatever you're about to say. Just sort of remember, this person's in front of you. They've chosen me to share this part of themselves with. I can think about this stuff alone later. I don't want to hurt them. Let's move on. I think that can be kind of helpful. But in general, it's good to sort of have an idea of how you're reacting and how you're feeling, so that you can, just have more awareness of yourself in this situation and sort of calm yourself down a little bit if you need to, or know, okay, I'm feeling a little confused, but that's okay. You can kind of talk yourself through it a little bit. The next thing I want to talk about is making sure that you are being patient with the person who is, sharing this information with you, who is coming out with you, and make sure that you are sort of letting them tell you this information at their own pace. Like I said, this is a very, vulnerable thing for them. It could be very difficult. Don't rush it, right? You wouldn't want to be rushed if you were sharing, an important piece of yourself with someone. So, just kind of offer support, let them share at their own pace. And I think in talking about this, it's important to remember that, you might have a lot of questions and they might not have the answers right now. They might not have everything all figured out. And that's okay. Recognize that and think, if you have all of these questions, they probably have all of the same questions. And it's probably very confusing and very frustrating for them not to have those answers. So, just remember that, keep that in your mind. And recognize, one day maybe they will have the answers and they'll choose to share that with you. But if they don't right now, that's fine. I think it's also important to remember not to push someone to disclose something that they're not ready to. They might not be able or might not be ready to, share all of the things that they have figured out with you just yet. And I think at first glance, this could seem very offensive, very much like, oh, why don't they want to share this with me? If you trusted me, if you loved me, you would tell me this. Why can't you tell me? It's fine, it's safe. But I think it's important to take a step back and remember that this isn't about you, right? This idea of, defining our sexual orientation, defining our gender identity, it's a difficult process. And for a lot of people, it can take some time to sort of get comfortable with a label and to sort of, feel ready to put that out into the world, right? the person might not be ready to, share with the world their full identity yet, or even if they have it figured out. So I think that, don't push someone to disclose what they're not ready to, and just remember that it's not about you, right? It's not some sort of reflection on you and your trustworthiness, or on their love for you or trust in you. It's more than likely just because this is difficult for them. So just remember that, and don't feel offended if they aren't ready to share all the details with you yet, or if they don't have all the details yet, because this is a lot to sort out. The next thing I want to talk about is sort of making sure that you offer reassurance and support to your person, especially if they seem really nervous. I think that it's important to let them know that this doesn't change your relationship with them. It doesn't affect how you feel about them. Let them know you still want to be their friend. You still love them. Offer support, and let them know that you're an ally. You can ask them if there's anything you can do for them, or any support that they need. You can ask them if there are, a different name or different pronouns that they like to use now. Just sort of, let them know that, you're there for them, you're here to support them, and your relationship doesn't change, because it might be something that your friend or your loved one is pretty worried about. I think that when we think about this idea of support, it's also important to remember to respect your person's privacy. If they ask you not to share this information with anyone else, make sure that you do keep the information confidential. You wouldn't want someone, going out into the world and spreading your business everywhere and telling everyone all very personal things about you. So don't do that to your friend. No one has a right to this information about the person who's coming out to you, but that person has a right to disclose this very personal piece of themselves to the people they choose at the time they choose. So just sort of remember that, and make sure that you are keeping things confidential if they ask you to. I think part of this is, not being afraid to ask your friend or your loved one, who else they've come out to, or if there are people in their life they aren't ready to tell this information to. And in having this conversation, I think it's very important to be mindful of your tone, and to sort of frame it as a conversation where you are just trying to check in to see who knows this information, so you know who they're out with, so that you don't accidentally out them to someone they're not ready to be out with, or someone it's not safe for them to be out to. Sort of frame this as a conversation where you're asking to have this information in order to keep them safe, not because you feel like their identity is something shameful, something they should hide, or because you feel like left out, right? Like, well, am I the last to know? You want to make sure that, you're not like, oh, who have you told? Like, don't tell anyone else. You don't want to come across like that, or you don't want to come across like, well, who have you told? Can't believe you told your friend before you told me, like, or you told, your teacher before you told me. Oh, how could you do that? You don't, want to be coming across that way. It's more like, hey, who knows this information, so that I know, who you're out to, so that I can make sure I'm not outing you to anyone. That kind of a conversation, just because you do want to make sure you are keeping your loved ones safe, and respecting their privacy. So we already talked about, asking if there's anything you can do for them, or any support that they need, and, asking if there are a new name or pronouns that they prefer. And I think that in thinking about names and pronouns, and sort of going back to the confidentiality thing we just talked about, it's important to remember that, if there are people in this person's life that they aren't out to, and they don't want to use the new name and new pronouns with, make sure you respect that. You don't want to out them and put them in an unsafe situation, so really do try to be mindful of that. I think that's something that you can do to sort of help support your friend, your loved one. Something that's very easy to do is to learn more about the LGBTQIA+ community and this person's particular identity or label, especially if, it's not something you know that much about already. Don't feel scared to ask the person in front of you, like, what this identity means to them. Different labels mean different things to different people, so it's okay to ask your loved one, hey, like, I know bisexual, for most people means that they're attracted to, 2 or more genders, but, like, what does this mean to you? And you can even kind of frame the conversation like, if you feel comfortable sharing this with me, or if you feel comfortable talking about this right now. And if they don't feel comfortable talking about it right now, or they're not entirely sure what this label means to them, that's okay. And just tell them that, like, hey, that's fine. We can talk about it when you're ready, or we can talk about it when you've figured it out. No pressure. I was just curious, what it means to you. And you can then, go and do your own research and sort of learn what this means in general, and maybe that would be the better way to support your person at this time. But there's all sorts of, great information available about the LGBTQIA+ community now. There's a bunch of information on the internet. There are books, at your local library. There's videos on my channel and dozens of other channels out there in the world that could be really helpful for you. So, just take the time to sort of get to know the LGBTQIA+ community a little bit better. Your person will really appreciate that, I'm sure. Sort of the last thing that I want to sort of put on your radar and sort of remind you of is that if a person has come out to you as a different identity in the past, it doesn't mean that they were lying now that they have a new identity or they've chosen a different label. I think that it's important to remember that, as we grow, as we self-reflect, our sense of self changes over time. Our identity changes. If you think back to when you were 11 or when you were 5, when you were 30, depending on, how old you are, like, your identity now is much different than it was then. I'm sure that you don't think of yourself now in the exact same way you did as when you were 11. As we grow, as we mature, as we reflect on ourselves, we come to understand ourselves in different ways or in better ways. So, if someone had, come out to you as, with a different identity before, it just means that, now they know themselves in a different way or in a new way or in a better way. And they've been able to, get a better sense of themselves or define their identity better or choose a label that works better for them. I also think it's important to remember that labels have changed over the last, few years, and they've become more specific. New labels have popped up that maybe fit your person better now. So, just remember that our identities in general, for all of us, they change. They're not a static thing. And that goes for your person as well. So don't feel offended or feel confused if they're coming out to you as a different identity than maybe what they did in the past. Finally, just to sort of sum up the do's, just, carry on with your relationship with this person. This person is still your friend, your family member, your coworker, your student, your teacher. They're the same person that they were before. Their identity is very important, but it's not the only part of them. They are still, that same person that they were before, so just carry on with your relationship. Keep it up and, offer them support and just, continue being the great friend, the great family member, etc. that you were before. Okay, so moving on from the do's, hopefully that kind of gives you a sense of maybe how you can respond. Let's talk about some things not to do when someone comes out to you. We've already talked a little bit about, not being judgmental. So, try to put your judgment on hold and just focus on the person in front of you and really, being there for them and offering them support. But I think there are some other things that sometimes happen when someone comes out, or some other responses people sometimes give. And oftentimes I think that these responses can come from a good place. And people don't realize that they are maybe invalidating, or they don't realize that they are hurtful. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about them today so that you could know, oh, this is not a good response to have. Like, I understand why I shouldn't say this, and maybe here's something I can say instead. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because sometimes people, they are trying hard, they're doing their best, they want to say the right thing, and, they get it just a little bit wrong. So we're going to talk about some of those responses now. So I want to start by talking about responses that serve to sort of minimize or invalidate the person's experience or identity. So, someone, they just come out to you, you might say something like, oh, this is just a phase, don't feel stressed out. Or, oh, are you sure? Or, maybe you haven't met the right person yet. Or, have you ever been with a man? Have you ever been with a woman before? How could you know? Stuff like that could be very invalidating, and maybe it comes from a good place. Maybe you're just curious, or you're trying to sort of reassure the person if they seem a little nervous. But unfortunately, it really serves to sort of minimize and invalidate the person's experience, which is not something that you want to do. I know it's not what you want to do, or you wouldn't be here watching this video. So if you could try to kind of avoid saying things like that, and sort of making the other person's experience seem invalid, I think it would be really helpful to your conversation. Something else that could be, difficult or painful for some people is the phrase, I see everyone the same. And I think that this phrase really does come from a good place for a lot of people. They want to say, like, it's okay, it doesn't change how I feel about you. I still love you, I still care about you. They want to offer reassurance when they say this phrase. So they say, I see everyone the same. But unfortunately for a lot of people, this phrase can be really minimizing, really invalidating of their experience, because this is a really big part of their identity that they're sharing with you. And so when you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, I see everyone the same, don't worry about it. It can kind of feel like you're blowing their identity off a little bit. And they're like, but I'm telling you this really big, important thing. Like, what do you mean it doesn't matter, right? It matters a lot. So I think, when you want to offer reassurance like this, kind of go back to the do's, right? And sort of, one, acknowledge that this is a big deal. You appreciate them coming out to you, sort of that step one. And then also, think about other ways that you can offer reassurance, saying things like, I still want to be your friend. I still love you. I still care for you. It doesn't change how I feel about you. Stuff like that. I think that way you can still offer the reassurance that you want to give them in a way that is much less invalidating and more supportive. Alright, so moving on from sort of minimizing statements, let's go to more what I've called invasive questions. So these are things that you can kind of think like, would you want someone to ask this to you? If the answer is no, don't ask it to the person in front of you, okay? Some of these questions are invasive, some of them are both invasive and irrelevant. They kind of stem from homophobia or from stereotypes. So just kind of avoiding these questions in general, it's the better way to go. So, you don't want to ask things like, oh, were you sexually abused? Or, oh, aren't you worried about AIDS, HIV? Don't ask that. Don't. It's none of your business. It's not relevant to the conversation. Focus more on those do's, on offering that support, on, really being there for the person and acknowledging, how special this moment is, instead of sort of, asking things like this. You also want to avoid asking very invasive personal questions like, are you going to have, gender confirmation surgery? Are you going to transition? How did you know this? Or what did your parents think? Or what does your partner think? What do your kids think? Are you going to get divorced? Like asking personal questions about their situation or about other people's reactions, that's none of your business. I also think it's important not to ask, questions about sex, relationships, how they're going to have children, stuff like that. If you think, okay, if you're at the Thanksgiving dinner and your nosy aunt comes up to you and it's like, so, Jessica, no husband and no children? Wow, clock's really ticking. When are you going to find a husband? Like, do you enjoy that experience? No, I didn't think you did. So don't put your friend or your loved one through that experience when they come out to you. Just sort of avoid these invasive or irrelevant questions. They're just going to be painful and uncomfortable for everyone, both you and the other person. The final thing I wanted to talk about avoiding was avoiding making it about you. This is really about the other person. It's about the person sharing this experience and sharing themselves with you. And yes, you're there and it's a very special experience for you and it's very important to acknowledge that. But you don't want to make it about you by saying things like, oh, are you attracted to me? Or, as long as you don't hit on me, I don't care if you're gay or straight, like, doesn't matter. Don't say kind of awkward stuff like that. You also, don't want to say like, oh, I've always known and blah, blah, blah. I was just talking to your father the other day about this and no, it's okay. You don't have to say that. Just, offer support or reassurance in other ways. I think sometimes people say these kind of things because they want to offer reassurance, or maybe they're feeling a little uncomfortable. I think that's why the little check-in with yourself can be important. If you know you're feeling a little uncomfortable or a little nervous, sometimes when we're nervous we say stuff and we're like, that was stupid, like, why did I say that, right? So if you know that you're nervous, maybe you can kind of think about what you say a little bit more before you say it. That way you could avoid saying something like this on accident even. And also, when you want to offer reassurance by saying things like, oh, I've always known, or I was just talking to so-and-so about this the other day, instead of making it about you, you can offer that reassurance by, saying things like, I still love you, I still care about you, I still want to, be friends, I still, I'm still your mom, I'm still, you're still my child, like, I still love you, I still care about you. Just offer reassurance and support like that instead. I think that would be much more helpful. It sort of avoids minimizing things and turning the focus to you. It offers them reassurance while sort of keeping the focus on them. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Whether someone just came out to you or whether you're just watching this for informational purposes, hopefully it's helpful and sort of provided you with some do's, some don'ts for when someone comes out. In the description box down below, I will link all of the different articles and things that I use to kind of pull these tips together. That way, if you want to read any of them in full and get more information, you can. I also will leave sort of my usual resources. My suicide and crisis hotlines will be down there. Sort of general resources about the LGBTQIA+ community will be down there. I also will have a workshop from PFLAG, which is an organization for families and parents. And it's a great video on sort of how to respond when someone comes out. And I also have a GLSEN resource for educators about how to respond when a student comes out to you. So that could be really helpful too. So I'll put those down there so you can check them out. And if you are watching this video because someone just came out to you and you're starting to research the LGBTQIA+ community, I have a bunch of videos on my channel from last year's Pride Month. Where I talk about a different identity. I talked about a different identity every day. So I have 30 videos that could be really helpful to you. So, feel free to check those out as well. So I hope that this video was helpful and that, the other things on my channel might be helpful too. If you have any, questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section down below. Either myself or some of the great people that are subscribed to this channel, I'm sure will help you out. But thank you so much for watching. I think it's important before we go to acknowledge that, you took the time to watch this video and to learn more about what to do and what not to do when someone comes out for this person that you love, you really care about, that's really special to you. And I just want to say, they will appreciate that. They will appreciate that you took the time to watch this video, to learn more about how to respond, to learn more about how to support them. It will mean something to them. Whether they know you watched the video or whether you just have a great response when they come out, either way, it will mean something to them. So, good on you for taking the time to watch this video and to do more to support your loved one. I'm really proud of you. I really appreciate you doing that, and your person will appreciate that too. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.